What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JFK Debates Project. I am your host, Matt Douthit from Dallas, Texas. Today we have Nicole Campbell. Nicole, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm good. From New York, right?
Back, Auburn, New York.
We're in New York, yeah. Um, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what crossed your paths with the JFK assassination?
Okay. Well, to start off, I like a good mystery.
Yeah.
Um, I've always enjoyed mysteries. I actually spent a lot of time researching the Bronze Age in the past 20 years, but I have kept up as much as I could on current JFK releases. Um, Anything about JFK is always it's affected everybody. It affected my parents who were 8 and 4. It affected their parents. And anytime anything ever came up, my mother would explain, what happened and how it affected everybody. And even now today, I mean, it's one of the most talked about dialogues in the US. So probably, so I kept up with things. And this summer, I thought to myself, I'm like, there's got to be something that we're missing here because otherwise it would be very apparent to us what the answer was. It can't be that hard. And the Warren Commission did not give anybody anything that settled. It didn't settle anything. It didn't settle anything with everyone. So,
Yeah.
so it's time. I started looking into it really deeply, and I figured I would just immerse myself with it and totally read as much as I possibly could, get all the different perspectives from any place I could. And I remember thinking one of the first things I thought when I watched the Zapruder film was that it actually seemed kind of low. And I'm like, well, off the top of my head, I'd heard about their heart attack gun. And I was like, okay, well, they could create a car that would perhaps kill the president. Maybe there was a gun in the trunk. Maybe there was somebody in it to create something that would be so low, it seemed. Um, so that's kind of like what started it. And so I watched the Zapruder film again and again. I wanted to find somebody or something that saw what I saw, that saw that it was down low versus high up and from the book depository.
Mhm.
Um, so I started off pretty simply, like they're departing Love Field. There's a YouTube video and it's by Palmer Greenberg and it's on YouTube and it's the radio transcript and the video of the president departing Love Field.
Mhm.
The radio announcer, uh, it just sounds really weird. It sounds good at first, but then he explains that there's submachine guns in the car and there's heavy armaments, and then all of a sudden it just kind of goes silent for a little while.
There again you can see the Secret Service in the follow-up car, standing on the running board. That car, by the way, has very heavy armaments in it. It has submachine guns. It has the necessary... And now, as you see, the president's car is leaving. I return you now to Dallas.
And when I was watching, I was like, wait, what? There's, I hadn't really thought about that perspective just yet. Um, so immediately that caught me, and I was like, no, that's kind of weird. Oh, and then he says, there they go. There goes JFK to Dallas. That's the end of the whole thing. So the Ribka situation, I watched Ribka attempt to get onto the car, and then I think it was Emery Roberts, I believe, that called him off of it.
Followed by a carload of press.
Now, I don't care whether or not, um, you know, some people say, well, he didn't want anybody on the back of the car. And other people, it's either they didn't want him on the back of the car. Maybe he shouldn't have been there or something. But Henry Ribka thought he was supposed to be there. That's a huge thing right there. And then when Emery Roberts called him off, I was like, oh my God, there goes that guy. I mean, that would have blocked the shot that killed JFK, So immediately that's like, these are all red flags that are coming up, and it's just immediate. Then I looked at the HSCA trajectory drawing, and that was tipped forward. And I was like, it's not supposed to be tipped forward because his head wasn't forward. So in my mind, and actually with my phone, I tipped his head back upwards, and it started to make a little bit more sense. It's biased and it's presented to us in a biased way so that when we look at it, it causes us to question less about the sixth floor and how far up that is from the street level. So then a back shot to the head would, go through his head and miss his face. So that makes sense. But when you just tip him back up to the position that he is actually in, it takes away you know. So I was basically at that point still looking for, because, who else has looked at this and said, why haven't the SS members been looked at more in detail? It's one of the most covered up theories I've ever run into myself, honestly. There's so many theories out there, they're just everywhere. And I was like, but that seemed to me, and there's something called Occam's razor, and
Yeah.
that is the most simplest answer. The most simplest answer. You might get a little bit of confusion in there, but don't focus too much on the confusion too far out. And the simplest way I could look at it at this point was, okay, so then I looked at the people in the SS car. And so in the back was Glenn Bennett on the right-hand side and George Hickey on the left. There's a photo with them at the top of Elm Street, and you can clearly see that Hickey is on the left and Glenn Bennett is on the right. In my head, I developed this theory that perhaps there was two guns used because there were two different types of bullet, the way that the bullets expressed themselves. So I looked at Connolly and I looked at the situation with the windshield, that there was a bullet hole in the windshield. So I figure because of where the bullets went through, Glenn Bennett would have had to have been standing, perhaps, standing and shoot. The first bullet goes through the back of JFK about 4 inches down from the shoulder on the right. It passes through Connolly, exactly where that bullet would go through him. And it hit him in the wrist, in his leg. So that's bullet number one. Bullet number two, as they were just passing behind the sign and was the fruiter from, it would have to go through his neck and through the windshield. And then bullet three would have to come from Hickey's gun, and that would go through the back of his head as he tipped forward and out through the top, so that type of bullet would have exploded, which would explain the missing brain. And that's how that wrapped up. After I discovered this idea, then I found Donahue's perspective. And Donahue is looked over as like a quack, but everything about what he wrote about, it was in Bona Mettinger's
Yes.
book, Mortal Error.
Mortal Error, yes. Famous book. Yeah.
That was awesome. That was really awesome. And the only thing that I disagreed with in the entire thing, this guy is so smart. He's a ballistics expert. He was a guns expert. You have to listen to this guy. He said that Hickey shot him accidentally, which just didn't sit right with me. Yeah, there would have had to have been a cover up if there was, people were embarrassed that, I accidentally shot the president, I guess. But that doesn't really sync with the whole story, of the CIA. It's just too perfect,
Mm-hmm.
So, and then also, yeah, he dismissed the grassy knoll because he knew that the headshot didn't come from the grassy knoll. And I disagree with any of the other shot areas as well, including the bridge, because even then a bullet would have hit the back of the car or the SS members. So, grassy knoll as well. There's a lot of people around. Let's see, there was also S.M. Holland as a witness, and that
Yeah.
included the officers. They all smelled gunpowder. They all smelled gun in the motorcade. And then other officers said that they even had come to a stop. Even Winston Lawson saw Hickey standing with a machine gun. So right there, after all these years, I can't believe that's not the bigger story.
Yeah. Anything else that you concluded? Anything else that stood out from you, or before
Uh,
we open to discussion, or what? Anything else?
there's so much. I can't even go there. When you asked me to do this, I was like,
No,
myself,
no, no. This is
ah,
totally relax, totally just shoot the shit kind of talk. You know what I mean?
20 things here. So
Sure, we got time. Yeah, sure.
as we're talking about this, I'll be glad to have you put up the pictures because the pictures really do help it, be understandable. Um, the autopsy photos. Now, I heard that there was a nicked vertebrae, was there not?
Yeah, that's a tough one. There was a let me get the exact quote right here because that's actually a tough one because people don't really talk about it a whole lot. But the HSCA concluded, quote, and this is HSCA Volume 7, page 219, quote, there is an undisplaced fracture of the proximal portion of the right transverse process of the first thoracic vertebrae.
Right.
People don't know what to do, don't know what to do with that.
I do know what to do with that.
Okay,
Okay.
what do you think?
Now, so the autopsy photos, you'll see JFK, and he has a scrunched up neck,
Hmm.
a ruler over his vertebrae, over his spine. Um, it was a really, really bad, uh, but that's a mess. Um, it would cover up any bullet hole that would be present underneath where the ruler was, or even in the folds of the scrunched up neck. And it also effectively moved the bullet hole that was 4 inches down closer to the top, perhaps making that bullet hole magic bullet theory
Uh,
work somebody else, you know. It's another dishonest picture presented to the public.
so you think that the real wound is underneath the ruler?
I think it's either underneath the ruler or it's in the folds of the skin of the neck,
That's
actually. And and
I,
that would that and that's how your vertebrae gets nicked, and that's how it comes out the front with the tie and goes through the windshield.
interesting, interesting. I've never heard of that before. So you think that it entered and then hit and then went up out of the neck, right?
Yeah, it went right through the neck and right through the front
Went up,
windshield.
out. Yeah. So not down as they say, but it ticked the vertebrae and deflected it and went up. Yeah, that's what Dr. Cyril Wecht always thought as well.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, that's what he thought. He wasn't really good at explaining that that's what happened, but when pressed later on, he said, "Oh yeah, that's what happened." Because everyone was like, "Well, how can it like miss the stuff in front of him?" But I think he always forgot to add that extra point. It hit the vertebrae and went up, out, and went up. So,
Right.
but
Um, Another thing that was really impressive to me was Vince Calamara's work. He noted so many discrepancies with their stories. They lied for years that Bennett was even on their trips in Florida.
mhm.
Um, they said that and he even testified, Bennett testified that he was not in Florida on the previous trips, which was right before Dallas, right before Texas.
Yeah.
And it's just riddled with lies. Um, he was on every stop in Florida. And then also, I mean, ultimately in the end, I have not been able to find any good information on what happened with Hickey and Bennett after this whole thing. It's like a dead stop and there's nothing. Like I found a few sentences and I found that Bennett had um, been promoted, but I still couldn't find anything on Hickey. Do you
Now,
have any
yeah.
information on that?
Again, that's a tough one because it seems like Hickey always, never gave interviews, or he just kind of went into the shadows, at least until the lawsuit in the 90s happened. I think I might have missed something of what you said. You said so you believe that Hickey intentionally or accidentally fired?
Yeah, I believe he intentionally fired that bullet, actually.
I've never heard that before. That's
Oh,
interesting.
yeah, and that would be what, you know, makes my concept different than Donahue. He was so smart, and everything. His ballistics were correct. He was right in thinking that if he shot him.
Yeah,
But what I disagreed with was that it was accidental because I mean, it's because from my perspective, I'm looking at what looks like a live CIA operation on the ground in Dealey Plaza, and by the end of our conversation, you'll understand more perhaps why I feel this way.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but we're looking there. They put so many things that were confusing everywhere, and I think it is to cover up for that one idea, and it's just they couldn't have been too far away from him because what if they missed? What if they missed? They couldn't miss. They couldn't. They would have to be a lot closer than the sixth floor for that to occur.
yeah. Okay, so that's your thought on Hickey. Now you mentioned Bennett. What's exactly your thought on Glenn Bennett again?
Okay, so Glenn Bennett was a PRS agent that was assigned to the Secret Service. There for when situations were, the fact that JFK had had his life threatened so many times. And even on the trips in Florida, they checked buildings and they stood on the back of the car. They did all these things that they just dropped the ball on so completely in so many different ways. Um, Glenn Bennett was who I believe was the first two shots, um, honestly. And then after when he was done, then Hickey stood up and did his work.
So, that's interesting. I've never heard this before. So you think Glenn Bennett fired the first two shots and then Hickey fired the third shot, right?
Yeah, Bennett was probably standing up a little bit, shot through. Then the second one, he probably sat down a little bit for that one. And then Hickey stood up and shot the headshot on purpose. So now also, there's a really great video on YouTube, and it's from the Boston Globe and PBS Nova. Uh, it was one of those specials they had, and it was President Kennedy's X-ray. Now the forensic neuropathologist is Dr. Peter Cummings, and it's a really good short video. And they have one, the autopsy described photo. The autopsy described photo has it coming from the lower part
Yeah.
through. The second is the investigative committee fracture pattern, and that is from high on the top of the head and down low.
Yeah.
And then President Kennedy's X-ray is, he said he thought it more closely, and it does when you see the video or see the picture. His X-ray more closely resembles the autopsy, which is down low to up top. There's so many. One could go on for many hours, just all strange things. The press car was 6 cars back. The press bus was number 14. They were often usually in front of the president or very close by. The military aides who had been previously with him on very recent past trips were somehow far back. Yeah, like there's just too many weird things that they dropped the ball on. So,
Mm.
oh, and the windshield.
Yeah.
Um, Charles Taylor of the FBI wrote he saw a bullet hole in front of the window, front window, bullet fragments were removed. Steve Ellis, who was a motorcycle officer, you could put a pencil through it. It was a hole. And then the Secret Service, their testimony was it was a crack.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. This should be a very interesting conversation. Have you I've never heard anyone say that Bennett also fired that Bennett fired as well. Also that
Well,
Hickey fired intentionally because everywhere you hear, oh, Hickey accidentally fired. In fact, I interview. Did you see my debate with Doug Mack Stone from a couple months ago?
I don't think so. I watched the last two though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, that's probably it. But he says no, Hickey did not even accidentally fire. He said it was the weapon itself that was badly manufactured and it was an accidental slam fire. He doesn't even place the blame like at all on Hickey. He says that it
Mhm.
was a weapon malfunction. But like not so like he can't even blame him at all. So I'm like, okay. There are people who say he didn't do it. People say he accidentally did it. People say, "Oh no, it was the weapon itself that was a slam fire." And now you're saying that you think he intentionally fired. I've never heard that before. Very.
The only time anybody really joked or laughed about Donahue, considering his background, was the fact that he thought it was accidental, and I think that's why people didn't take him seriously. Is because it insults our intelligence, not to actually even assume that it possibly could have been, you know.
Yeah. What do you so what weapon do you think Bennett was firing from?
Well, I think they both had two different guns with two different types of bullets in it. Bennett had they were both obviously machine guns. Um, and Bennett had the type of bullet that would pass through a person, that passed through the president twice. And then the last one, which was Hickey, he had a different gun, which had a different bullet. They may have been the same type of gun, just different bullets, you know.
Yeah. Once
I'm 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 of the impression that there was three or more shots as well. I wouldn't ever go lower than three.
so how many shots total do you think there were?
No less than three.
Okay, yeah.
And most people did say they heard three shots or more. And then I think there was a few times where people said that they even kind of mixed together because it sounds like that Roy Kellerman said there was a flurry of shots, you know.
Yes.
Um,
That
three
gets
or
overlooked.
yeah, for sure.
There's some guy who wrote a book called Phantom Shot where he thinks that only two shots were fired. I'm like, there's a little too much damage for two bullets. I'm like, for,
That's pro Oswald shooter.
I've never read that book. Have you?
No,
I've not,
no.
no, I no, it's not on my shelf. So,
When most people agree that it's three, I think we can stop at three. And then, if there's any more, there could have been a few more for sure.
well, I saw that you had a list there, and do you want to? What else is on the list? Come on, let's see.
I was
What
gonna
else is on the list? Yeah, come on, let's see.
say, okay, so now I have a picture that is the back of Bennett and Hickey at the top of Elm Street. And then if you look at the corresponding area in the Zapruder film, it is very clear to me that there is fuzziness to where Bennett is, and you actually can't even see Bennett. You can see Hickey quite clearly. You can see all four of the guys standing quite clearly. There's not much room. There might be a little bump right next to Hickey, but that means Bennett would have to be like next to his shoulder, and that would have been a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Um, Immediately I saw that, and I thought this photo has been doctored because it's very clear at the top of the street. They're both sitting right next to each other. There's not 3 foot between them at all. And when you look at the Zapruder film, you can really tell that Bennett has been possibly, and anyone can take a look at this. So look, anyone can see that Bennett is missing. And this is where, like, I started to realize that, we have a situation where what I was ending up looking at was, well, what's missing from this situation? What is missing? That's one thing that's really important that we should actually be able to see Bennett right there. If we can't see Bennett right there, and if he should be in that one spot, he is not there. So I just, at the time, I'm like, that's just impossible that we couldn't. Also, oh yeah, the Alchins photo. Alchins photo was cut up by the Warren Commission. We see in that they cut off the whole thing. The Alchins photo was taken just in front of the president and the SS. You see a picture of what looks like Bennett's back, and it is Bennett's back. But it's also in the exact position where Hickey would be. Okay, so that's another red. Bennett should be closer behind the two on the right-hand side. We should actually be able to see Bennett turning around, but like maybe a foot over. And we should perhaps even be able to see Hickey. But from that perspective, what is missing? That's the shot right there at the neck level. In sure, if I thought, what would I see if I was looking in the back of the car with my perspective? We would see Bennett with his gun. And so him not being there, immediately I thought, well, then where's Hickey? I don't know. But if you look at the top, the photo from the top of Elm Street, the back of Bennett right there looks exactly like, it looks like somebody overlaid that Bennett onto the alt-gen photo because even the perspective doesn't really match. I'm an artist and I can see pretty clearly when something looks like it's kind of funky. Like I've been able to spot AI when other people have not been able to spot AI yet. So I'm pretty like stoked about that too, but not because I don't want to be fooled, you know. So basically, if anybody wants to take a look at the alt-gen photo, that one does look, it does look like somebody has messed with that picture because his back, like I said, matches the top of the Elm Street back of Bennett. And then Hickey's not even. And if, like I said, what would I see there if my concept is true? I would be seeing Bennett with a gun, and then also we would be perhaps seeing Hickey. At that point, that would be the next time. That would be when Hickey starts to rise, and then he would be shooting the president.
Gotcha. Let's go back just for a second. Okay, so you think the first shot was fired by Bennett, and then that was the one that hit him in the back, right?
Yeah, the back 4 inches below, and then that's
Yeah.
the one that went for Conley.
And the second one was what again?
That one was the one that actually went through the back of his neck and was later hidden by folds in his neck for the autopsy photo. And
Oh,
that went
so you
with
think
the,
that he was hit twice in the back?
yep, yep. And we actually can't see the second bullet hole because it's been covered up.
Okay. I'm just writing this down a little bit. Marianne hidden.
It was very disappointing to look at
Hidden,
this. And
hidden
doesn't
by
any,
thriller. And then the third one was, of course, Hickey, back of the head.
yep. And then people even, I think it was even Lawson in the front car, said he saw Hickey standing with a gun. Plenty
Yeah,
of people saw him standing. Everybody smelled motor or smoke in the motorcade.
yeah, gotcha. So you're of the opinion, like Donahue, that the witnesses who said that shots came from the street level are not talking about the grassy knoll, but they heard it come from the follow-up car. Is that
Right.
correct?
And the trajectory really does seem to match when you think about it.
I think there were probably four shots, and I think that, three of them came from the rear. So we're in agreement there so far. You see what I mean? You see, this is part of the problem. If you watch my debate with Doug Stone, is that kind of the debate was an interesting cookie but it was also kind of frustrating in the sense that it was almost forcing me to disprove a negative. You see what I mean? Because it's like he and I agree on like almost everything. It's just we disagree on microseconds and a couple feet. You see what I mean? So like you and me, it's like we both agree three shots came from behind. We just probably agree on obviously different who fired it and from where, but probably at the same times, I would assume. So you see how it can kind of be a little frustrating because
Yeah,
it's like we're close, but we're also kind of far away.
I'm relying on a lot of red flags. I'm relying on a lot of red flags with their behavior and with what people saw and what people heard.
Yeah.
We should not discount witnesses. And
Yeah.
I know the commission discounted a lot of witnesses, and that was the thing. I was looking for things that I don't know. Just it seems like an obvious situation, but uh, looking for things that they would have tried to crop out and they would have tried to remove witnesses they wouldn't want to hear. What were they saying?
Yeah.
and that's how I came to these conclusions.
Yeah, there's
I,
so many witnesses who are like in the record where they sent agents out to interview them and they don't ask them like any questions. It just says, okay, there are reports where it just says, okay, this is their name, this is where their address is, this is where they work. They
Mhm.
witnessed the assassination and like that's it. And I'm like,
Yeah,
it's like we almost have more witnesses who were not asked questions than the people that were, so it's just frustrating.
yeah, and even with Connolly's his testimony, he's a very sharp guy. He What really got me though was that he said that he heard the first bullet, but he didn't feel it, and then the second bullet he felt it, but he didn't hear it. Um, that he's I think he was very traumatized by what was already happening and at the time.
Yeah.
So he got a little bit confused. Most of his testimony is very sharp. But then you get to that point and I'm like, I think that he got a little bit confused. He was feeling stuff for the president, I believe, at the same time. I believe he was actually shot by that first bullet. Didn't feel it out of his feelings for the president, although hearing it.
Okay, wait. So you think that the single bullet was the first one, right? Was
Yeah. So yeah,
was
the first bullet went through the upper top of Kennedy's back, the one that we could see in the autopsy book, and that's the one that went through Connolly.
and then the second one was the one that deflected outward from the neck?
Yeah, it's like it just missed his spine and went out the front of his neck.
So would there be two holes in the neck or would it have exited out in the same?
He would have to have a corresponding hole in the back of his neck where the folds are.
No, no, no. So two holes in the back, but you think there was another hole in his throat?
No, I mean, so like okay, so yes, two holes in the back, one
Hmm.
that we could see, and then the one that we couldn't see up near his neck. And then there was an exit hole in the front because that's where the trajectory goes right through.
Okay. How
That,
many?
that's how it exited. So at that point, there'd only been two shots.
Okay, hold on. So the first one, it goes through his neck and hits Connolly, right?
No.
No, okay, let's get this right. That's right.
So
Sorry.
okay, so let's just pretend we're watching it. And Bennett maybe he stands up, perhaps because of how the bullet went through. But also, we don't see the front of Kennedy. We should be seeing the front of Kennedy. That's another thing. Like, see, I'm telling you, what are we missing here? We're missing the front of JFK's autopsy. We can't see his front of his body. I've looked for it.
Well,
Um,
you see,
that, yes, you could see that
right.
part, but you can't see where it went through 4 inches below on his back, the first one. You can't see the front of his body. You know how like you have Connolly and he was hitting the back and then it went through like right above his nipple. That's what we should be seeing on JFK. We don't see that. That would disprove the magic bullet theory. So why would we see the front?
Why is it so hard to try and okay, hold on. Okay. First bullet you think is the bullet that hit by Bennett, hit Kennedy in the back and came out his throat and hit Connolly. No.
Front, not through the throat.
Okay,
No,
you
the
that's
magic bullet
went,
theory.
okay, so you think the first shot went up and hit the windshield, right? Oh gosh, why is this so darn difficult?
I'll try to explain it. I'll get it.
No, no, no.
So
Wait. Okay, wait. No, so the first bullet hit by Bennett in the back, and it exits.
okay, so
Okay.
he gets back 4 inches below the shoulder. It should have exited like above his nipple as well. Okay, JFK's. It should have gone out the front of him and went through Connolly 2 or 3
Okay, so you think it exited his chest?
Yeah, yeah. So we're not seeing
Okay.
that.
Okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
Okay, hold
See,
on.
I told you I'm looking at that stuff what are we missing here? What doesn't make sense? So the first bullet goes through the back of JFK, 4 inches
Okay,
below his shoulder.
exits his chest. Okay.
Then it goes through Connolly's back. Then it exits right above his nipple. and then it lodges, goes through his wrist and lodges in his leg or something. So that's bullet number one. Bullet number two, Bennett Fry got down a little bit. He shot the president in the back of the neck. It just missed his spine. It exited his throat and it went through the windshield. And then Hickey took the final shot.
Okay, I got it now. Okay. It took a minute, but I got but I got because
Because
again, this is just yeah.
this is what we're missing, and that's why they're trying to push that magic bullet goes through the back and goes straight up to the side and out the neck. Yeah, we don't
Okay.
believe that.
All right. First shot, Bennett, Kennedy's back, exits his chest, hits Connolly. Second bullet, correct?
Yep,
Second bullet, also Bennett, hits him again, but it hits the vertebrae and deflects up and hits the windshield, correct?
yep,
And then the third headshot is Hickey, and it hits him in the back of the head. Got right?
yep.
Okay, I got it.
Different guns, two different bullets.
Do you think a bullet missed the car?
It could have.
Could have, yeah.
I'm not certain now. I can't say.
Everyone asks me about, well, what do you think about the missed shot? And I'm like, you know, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like I'm not sure what to do with it because it's like I care about the bullets that found their marks. You know what I mean?
Right, I know it's hard to.
Like I can concede another bullet that missed, but I feel like it doesn't do anything. It's like when someone asks me, well, what do you think about babushka lady or something like that? And I'm like, well, it doesn't really add a whole lot to the story. You see what I mean? Or Umbrella Man or Three Tramps or stuff like that. You see what I mean?
Right. So all of this included together, I mean, there's so much more that I could say. Um, but okay, so now one thing I wanted to talk about and that I was just so really impressed with was Chauncey Holt's story.
Okay.
So Chauncey Holt was a CIA contract agent and mob associate. And his story, his deathbed story, was one of the best stories I've ever heard in my life. There was so many uh, controversial name drops that I've had to watch it 5 times just because I had missed things and knew it. And I went back and I was like, oh my God. Like he even said Oswald's uncle Doug Moretz worked for Carlos Marcello. And I was like, easily nobody knows that. Have you heard that?
Um, I've read it. I've read it though.
Good, good, because I have not even heard that yet in my thing. And then I heard it on the fifth time of watching Chauncey Holt's story. Okay, so Chauncey Holt's story is he's saying that he met Oswald in New Orleans, and he actually even had a photo of him with Oswald. Um, and he met him through Guy Bannister. This was in the spring or summer of 1963. So Philip Twombly had told Chauncey Holt that it was going to be a staged pro-Castro demonstration. Um, prior to November 22nd, he claimed he was making fake IDs for Lee Oswald, including the Alex Heidel ID. He was also testing Mannlicher Carcanos in the summer of 1963 for the CIA. And he was so funny. He said that the Mannlicher Carcanos, you may as well have just used a bow and arrow. Well, yeah, that makes sense.
I have a video on my YouTube where it's really is a piece of shit rifle. Really, have you seen it or no? I'll send it to you.
No, you can
I
send it to
mean,
me.
I fired that gun and I was like, I was like 100% sure, but it's like now I'm like 110% sure this is just bullshit. You know what I mean?
Seriously. Um, so he's saying he made also fake Secret Service IDs prior to the trip to Dallas. And he was going there to deliver guns and IDs to a vehicle parked behind the picket fence.
Yeah.
Um, Now there was people and assassins seen by Chauncey Holt and Dealey Plaza. Like a person whose story was so amazing and so detailed and so correct. He brought up even I think his um CIA contract agent paperwork uh that he had was like the first ever known CIA contract agent paperwork to be made public. He provided so much documentation. It's just, to me, he was a savant, but also because he had so many things. He was an artist. He was a pilot. He worked in the circus. He when he was younger, um, he he had made so many different contacts, starting off with bootlegging and getting in trouble with that, meeting Meyer Lansky, working for Meyer Lansky, through Meyer Lansky becoming affiliated with being a CIA contract agent. Um, so when he said he did all these things, uh, for his bosses who he was working for. Now, none of these guys, the thing that none of these guys really, even himself, he was only led into the story so much. He only knew so much of the story. And he was even, like I said, he was going to be a pro-Castro demonstration. And he assumed that that meant was that they were going to take a shot at the president and it was going to further the CIA interest in, Cuba.
Yeah.
He said that and this is what, really got me in it. This is why I thought it was completely a CIA operation, was that he was seeing people that he knew on the ground in Dealey Club. Like he said, this one he said he knew he saw Aldo Vera Serafin, and he said he was one of the most foremost assassins in the world, and he was a freelance assassin. He saw Louis Posada, who was an assassin, and he was in the plaza. Freddie Lugo thought he saw Orlando Bosch. Uh, then he saw Rip Robertson, who was a CIA contract agent, and Chauncey just wasn't sure, but Tony Poe or Tony Possany thought he saw him, but figured he was mistaken because maybe it was someone possibly dressed up to look like him. Gene Braden, he was an organized crime figure, and he saw what he thought looked like a ninja. A guy completely dressed in black and looking like a ninja. And so it sounds like kind of crazy, but then if you understand the CIA operation, I mean, it's a total control situation. They use aliases and disguises. The usage of even the umbrella guy was, I mean, his reasons for having that umbrella out were a bit far.
Yeah,
You know,
you have to go along
that,
to make that argument.
if anybody would even make that connection ever in 100 years. So in 1970, Joseph Ball told Chauncey about a doctored image, and he thought that the Dillard photo of the book depository, which was taken 15 seconds or 30 seconds after the shooting. And it's true. That photo, when I looked at it, the one of the figures in the windows does look like overexposed. He looks too light for his position in the window. And then after that, his testimony was that plaster had, and this is another thing, he didn't have to mention that he thought a plaster, or he said plaster fell on its face from, I guess, what was the bullet shells hitting. I don't know. It's something weird.
So where does the 6-4 window or the depository shooter fit in here? Do you think no one fired from there, or why don't you talk about what happened in the 6-4 window, or what do you think?
I think, they could have set up a situation ahead of time, put things in place there. I don't think anybody shot from that window. I don't think Oswald was in it either.
You don't think anyone fired from the window?
No.
That's
No. Well, that's
that's it.
another thing. I could be wrong though, because I mean, let's pretend that Oswald was there and he was just like Chauncey Holt, and he was there and he was maybe supposed to hit or maybe not supposed to hit something. Maybe that bullet is what hit the interior of the car, right, with the little dent um in the in the chrome. So I mean, I can't discount it, but I don't think that any of the bullets that came from there hit anything.
Gotcha. So you think someone could be in there maybe firing like a blank or something or
Well,
something?
I have no idea, but I do know that the picture does appear doctored, that Dillard photo. But all that Dillard photo was good for also was the testimony of the person who said that, he heard stuff above him in the sniper's nest.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what do you think about the three witnesses who heard the shots, who say they heard the shots come from the window right above them?
In those types of confusing situations and the sound of ricocheting, the sounds bouncing off of things. Um, oh yeah, and then there's the puff of smoke near the picket fence too, right? I think there's a good deal of testimony that's accurate, and I think there's a lot of people who wouldn't be qualified to speak about where they thought it came from. They could say where they thought it came from, but you know, I would not. If I was there, I probably would not be able to say like, oh, I thought it came from over there with any great certainty, just because of the sounds and how they bounce off of others.
Yeah. In fact, I think you'll appreciate this. Jarman, who was in the window that we just talked about, very interestingly, in his testimony, he said, quote, it had come from below. And that's volume 3, page 209. So I'm like, I don't think a lot of people know, I don't think a lot of people know that because they just say, oh, the three guys, they heard the shots from the window. It's like, well, actually, two of them, I'll read the other one in a second. So Jarman said, quote, it had come from below. It come from below. And the other one was Bonnie Ray Williams, who was next to him, and he said, quote, he testified he thought it was, quote, maybe a motorcycle backfire, end quote, which implies that the shot came from the street. And that
Exactly.
and that's volume 3, page 175. But so a lot of people just, I mean, stuff like that gets totally thrown down the tank. So to your credit, yes, two of the three did say that the shots came from the
Yeah,
street.
yeah. And it was
But
just enough.
but so that leaves us with Harold Norman, and he did say shots came from above him. So do you think he could have been mistaken or what? Or
Well, with any of these things, dealing with the CIA in that situation, they have incredible power. People have asked me, like, well, what about Donald? What about is it Donald? It's one of the aides, one of JFK's aides, and they had no idea. They thought it like I think it's one of them. They thought it came from the grassy knoll. The SS members thought it came from the right and behind. Um, any of these people, doctors, people who were working in situations, could have easily all been threatened. And, we're going to do this or this, if you don't say. What we want you to say. So, it's honestly, I don't really know. But, I think that whether or not he was mistaken, I don't know. But I do know the power of the CIA and threatening people.
well,
Um,
yeah, yeah. So someone might say, well, we have, 47 witnesses who said they thought a shot or shots came from the depository or that area depository.
well, wasn't there like 53 or 59 that said it was from the ground level?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. There were 58 who said it was from the ground level, and there were about 47 who said it was from the building. So like, I mean, that's something you have to get over. Or how do you explain 47 people claiming that they came from the building?
Right. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think that if you were on the ground there, I guess I would probably be in the same situation with some of these people, not knowing and hearing these noises and, assuming maybe it came from there, maybe it came from here. Um, I think there could have even already been rumors of, hey, it came from up above. I mean, isn't that somewhere where that's where the Secret Service men would check in those areas typically? Because that would be like that, snipers like to shoot from up above. So I mean, I can't really say. I don't know. I always go though with usually the most people said, that they heard, or that a lot of people heard it said they heard three shots or more. So I go with three, just because, most people believe it, then I go with that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I have no idea. But a lot of those people were
That what?
not professionals,
Yeah.
you know, and it was very stressful and horrible, I'm sure.
I don't think you would get along with either Warren Commission defenders or conspiracy believers? Because you're like right, you're like in your own camp. You see what I mean? It's
No,
like
I've got Donahue, I've got Newcomb.
yeah. Oh, the smoke. So some people might say, but what about the smoke, bro? What about the smoke? The people elevated on the overpass where they had the advantage to see the smoke. They say that, smoke, basic fact, they said they saw the smoke coming out from the knoll. What do you think about that?
Who knows? I typically actually I usually pass that one by and I disbelieve it. But I think my point would be I don't think any of those shots killed him or hit him. So that being the case, I mean, there still could have been a shot fired over there. There's plenty of shots fired. It could have, and it maybe just could have been a diversion.
That's
You know,
interesting.
well,
Okay.
this, but you have to look at this also. Oh, who was that? Yeah. So here's a point for that. Uh, there's a guy called Bernard Barker, and this is from a Facebook group. God bless those Facebook groups because a lot of good information comes out of them.
Yeah.
Um, so Bernard Barker, he was up on the grassy knoll carrying a coat. There's a picture of him there, so it's not just talking, you know, he's carrying a coat and wearing a Stetson style hat. He was born in Havana, Cuba, age 46 at the time, near the picket fence. He was stopping people from proceeding to the picket fence. He was almost 6 foot tall himself, and he had a gun under his coat. He was warning people if they came up, they might get shot. And Andrew Summers heard that and thought maybe he was a detective um, or with the FBI. Um, Bernard Barker was involved with the CIA and was one of the Watergate burglars. He was involved in the Bay of Pigs invasion, anti-Castro ops, and he was documented in 1973 the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Presidential uh, Campaign Activities. So already that guy on the grassy knoll, that is huge. That's another one of those things, an opposition.
Yeah.
What's in there? What's he doing there? So I mean, there could have been a puff of smoke probably came out of his gun. like, but I wouldn't say that, that was the one that probably, could shoot that thing up in the air and everybody would be like, oh my God, it came from the grassy knoll. But that's what diversions do.
Yeah, so okay, so just so I got this down, you think that if there was a no shot, it could have been a diversion.
Yep. They
Yeah,
wanted everybody to look everywhere else except directly behind that car.
I have not, again, there's so much on my schedule to, investigate this, just because it's so long, but it's like, I've never studied in detail the South Knoll theory, which says that there was a diversion at the North Knoll to hide the fact that the headshot came from the South Knoll, because they say that when you position his head, that it's facing the south, because a lot of people think it's not facing the North Knoll, it's facing the South Knoll, and so it's like they do these trajectory cones and they say if it did come from the front, it would have to be from the South Knoll, and that's something you know, I know that's in the back of my head, but I haven't investigated it yet. It's like maybe I'm kind of nervous to to do that, because then it will have maybe it will have me change my mind. But it's like one of those things where, uh, yeah, it could. Getting back to the diversion on the North Knoll. So
There was a picture that I saw, and it was somebody who did it was like they like negative did or something, and it was actually you could see the spray going outwards away, like it came from behind. Yeah, I don't really go into too much with that, just because. Okay, still, yeah. I mean, if he was hitting the front of the head, it would have hit the cars or it would have hit the guys behind him. We
yeah,
would see
that's
damage.
the thing with the spray. Some people say, "Oh, that's proof that it came from behind because it's going in front." And then the people who believe in the South Node theory, he says, "Oh, that's actually blowback from the entry wound." I'm like, "Well, who do I?" We kind of have a split right there. You see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, but it can't be both.
I know
So
I know it can't be both. Same thing with the did Kennedy's head jerk forward? Some people say, oh, it jerked forward from the rear headshot, but some people say, oh, well, if you apply Newton's third law of motion, if he's hitting the front, it'll go a little forward before going back. So I'm like, those kind of things that I just described are what I call splits, where it could literally, it's both sides seem so convincing. You see what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
And I would default to the simpler one, which is somebody's going to hit me in the back of the head. My head's going forward.
Yeah. Um, so you think he was hit? Oh, so you think he was only hit in the head from the rear, right?
Hmm. Yep.
So what do you, so how do you explain the him going back into the left?
Um, that was just immediately after that, right? They got hit in the head and then he kind of like slumped over.
Well,
Right?
he gets thrown back into the left as you see in the film, yeah.
Yeah. Um, just the way his body fell.
Like usually people say it was the jet effect, or people say it was a neuromuscular spasm, or do you just think it's just how it,
Just the way his body went.
just the way his body went? Yeah, yeah. Um, what do you think Lee was? That little communist? No, no. What do you think that guy was?
What do I think he was?
What do you think he was?
Oh, he was definitely a patsy.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, but like what do you think he was during the shot? Some people say he was
okay.
in the
Yeah, he was,
doorway, in the lunchroom, on the steps, you know.
I have no idea where he was.
Yeah.
Um, but I do actually kind of have like a similar, like a thought about um, the fact that, he would have to be there. He could have done all those things. He could have brought something with him. Um, when you're a CIA contract agent, you go somewhere, you do what they say, and you wear what they want you to wear. He could have thought that, he was going to see a pro Castro demonstration. He could have thought that he was part of it. And, his thing was he was supposed to shoot a shot. It was supposed to maybe not hit something. Whatever it was, he ended up leaving there and like he went home, right? Um, I believe Chauncey Holtz said that when if anything happened, he was to go to the box car. So I thought in my head, I'm like, probably and just maybe, I mean, they didn't tell him to go home, they didn't tell him to go do this, go get in a box car, which wasn't even that far away. Maybe they told Lee Harvey Oswald to go wait out in theater, and
Yeah.
easily they set him up just that way.
In the theater, yeah. I agree.
Yeah. And to and then with the Tippit thing, I actually believe that Tippit was probably only murdered. Number one, I thought, well, maybe they could have used that in the JFK autopsy, but really, I think Tippit was only murdered just to catch up.
Just to what? Just to
Just to
catch?
catch up. Well, yeah, because I mean, you have to have somebody. They had to have somebody who was going to take the fall for this, and
Yeah.
considering. I think, so somebody says that, Lee Oswald was in this area and he went to the theater and they were going to catch him for Tippett's murder. They had to murder Tippett first, you know, and
Interesting.
then they caught him for the JFK assassination.
Yeah. Yeah, some people say he was supposed to die in the book depository. Some people say he was supposed to die on the bus that he got into, and then most people think he was going to die in the Texas theater. And I'm like, for me, that question is like, I have no idea like where he was supposed to die if they, you know what I mean? That's
I
always,
think that they wanted to catch somebody and it could have turned into a shootout, no problem. But I think they wanted to catch somebody. They wanted the American public to um, see that they caught somebody. And then if that person was even going to attempt to speak about it, they were just going to kill them.
yeah,
Honestly, I've even looked at the Oswald getting caught or getting caught getting they were going to move him to a different prison or different jail, and that whole thing I watched it and honestly, I mean, there's some definite weird things about that. First, I mean, okay, if you look at the JFK thing, like I think about the fact that uh, they used on the radio, 5 minutes from the trademark, and
yeah,
boom, the shots start. Now, in that video, we hear a beeping noise, a beep. And then boom, that's when it all happened. That's another thing that's employed. The sounds or something that you know when to start acting for those actors out there. Um, some of the video did kind of look doctored. I saw something where somebody's I believe they put something like a sack over the head um
Really?
of Ruby, and
That
really truly when they say why didn't they just tackle him to the ground and stop him? It's true. No, they put a bag over his head and they took him to another room. Like, no, you're not even going to disarm this guy. You're just going to
can't
put a bag
explain
on
that.
his head and take
I
him
can't.
away as much as you
I can't.
can.
Some people are like, well, the bag was meant for Oswald, but how did they react so fastly to put the bag over him? It's like I think that's something that was pointed. When was that pointed out? Like a couple of years ago, right? Or pretty recently.
Honestly, sure.
That's
That
like,
was I found that on one of the Facebook groups, and it was Dee McFarlane who posted it. That person, Dee McFarlane, is awesome.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So like that bag thing was overlooked for like 60 years. Imagine what someone's going to find in like 200 years.
um, well, geez, I called before then.
Um, what's the evidence that Bennett was packing that day? Because that's probably the one thing that stood out of what you said that I don't think I've heard anyone else say that Bennett was.
Um, I don't think does anybody actually know how many guns they had in it? Because the radio guy, the guy who was doing the radio from Love Field said that there was heavy armaments in the car, submachine guns, with an S at the end, submachine guns. Does anybody actually know how many guns? Because yeah, wait, yeah, they did say there was at least one, but I mean, we don't need to know any of that information.
I
They don't give us that.
Someone once told me that Connolly was had a gun on him. So I don't know. I really
Maybe,
don't. And
maybe.
so I think that might be the one thing that people might say like, Bennett, I've never heard that before. Oh, how could you say such a crazy thing? I'm just imitating what some people might say. What
Uh-huh.
you want to
Because
elaborate on that just a little bit more?
they could have any number of guns. We wouldn't need to know. We would anything that happened. Like back then, and if they had total control over the situation, they could have had 3 or 4 guns in that car. We wouldn't know. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, do you think Hickey was sitting or standing when he allegedly fired? Because that's, key to the trajectory, whether he was sitting or standing. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe he was standing, but by then the president's head was going forward. Like he had been hit in the throat, and then he probably was doing something like this. But it set it up, and you can see it in the Zapruder film. Um, Even if he had been standing, it would still go in through the back of the lower back of his head and out through the top. I say out, but I don't think it was the type of bullet that would go out. You
Got,
know, it wasn't it wasn't I don't think that bullet wasn't meant to hit anybody else on the other side.
gotcha,
So I
gotcha.
standing, but he was just forward enough to allow without hitting him in the face.
So, have you concluded that the Secret Service killed Kennedy, or only members were told to kill Kennedy?
I believe that the
That's like,
CIA the CIA set them up in a situation where they were to kill Kennedy. And I don't know that all of the Secret Service members were privy to that information, but I wouldn't really know.
gotcha, gotcha. Any names on the mastermind? Because a lot of people have come up with different names for the mastermind. I mean,
Well, even Chauncey Holt was like, that was a mastermind. And yeah, because you can see everything around it that causes you to know that it was an operation.
yeah,
And you have to look everywhere else but behind the car. That's like the most obvious answer. I think that because of the whole Dulles thing, Alan Dulles being fired, probably really set. I mean, they probably already wanted to kill the poor guy. But that probably set them off on the situation of trying to figure out how to actually do it and get away with it. Um, if it wasn't Alan Dulles, then it was somebody in his circle. because only power can do that,
Yeah.
get away with it.
So,
So even James Jesus Angleton, I thought, I'm like, well, that's probably him, you know. But anybody in that group right there would, I mean, whoever, not even whoever was in charge. Who is it, McCone or something that was after Dulles? Um, I don't even think that person would be in a, in that situation, a need to know person, a person who would have to know that what was going on, because they're so used to doing things without needing any kind of approval. Um, but it would be somebody that Alan Dulles probably knew, because I mean, otherwise. Oh, and that's another thing. I want to talk about Israel's connection. Everyone's going, oh, it was Israel. It was the Mossad that killed JFK. We can only blame so much on Israel. Yes, they are absolutely horrible. Um, but at the same time, even Meyer Lansky, who was one of the closest to the situations, he was actually, later writing letters to go to Israel, but he was begging to go to Israel. I mean, it's not like he wasn't welcome there just yet. So it's JFK is the one who broke the weapons embargo. Also, he ended up selling Israel some weapons. That broke the embargo on Israel. So I don't think Israel was in the position to be like, hey, let's go kill that guy. On the contrary, that's more of a reason not to kill. I do not believe that the CIA would uh, call up the Mossad and tell them do something like that on their turf when they can take care of it themselves. So I usually dismiss that Israel connection as well.
gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, most people think that Lansdale was the mastermind or things like that. Some people think, you know, Alan Dulles, project manager, William King Harvey,
Yeah.
another
Even William King.
project coordinator, and
Yeah.
Lansdale mastermind, H.L. Hunt, financer, and then David Adley Phillips, a simulator, maybe. Definitely
And
those guys, but just it's more about you know what I mean? Who was the yeah.
once, if you look at it from my perspective and you know that the Secret Service did it, you know that the CIA was behind it, but I don't go any further than that because I can't really say. There was so much I'm sure that we don't know about the situation. Um, but any speech by JFK that you listen to, he's like, "Gotta watch out. There's these bad guys. They're out here. They wanna do things without your approval." And there's just so many things that he was against that they were doing. Um, so yeah, but like I said, I wouldn't know who was, but I would assume it would be somebody that had to do with Alan Dulles and James Jesus Angleton. Just the ones who had all the connections. They could call up all those 50 guys to show up in Dealey Plaza and,
Yeah.
and shoot a gun at the grassy knoll, or, confuse people with all kinds of things. That's the whole operation. That's whoever was in charge of the operation, but I don't see it.
How long did it take you to draw? How long did you research it to come to these conclusions?
I basically completely immersed myself for a full 2 months, writing this all down as I was going through it and like testing ideas. I mean, I even thought for a second, maybe who was it, Roscoe White? Maybe he did doctor some of those photos, but that didn't help as much as um, understanding the idea that photo manipulation was alive and well in the 1960s, and
Yeah.
it can be done really shoddily because we have some pretty good examples of this.
Oh yeah.
Um, like
Absolutely.
the Glenn Bennett's back in the Altgens photo. And Altgens was a 26-year veteran of like AP News. Talk about potential of being bought right there. Um, so you'd have to go back. What was the question again?
Oh, the question was, how long did it take you to draw these conclusions?
2 months, 2 months. But it was because I lived and breathed it for 2 months
Yeah.
until I'm like, there's got to be some simple explanation for this, something that can, what have we missed? And like I said, I went through everything. What could we miss in that situation, which is why I couldn't Like, why can't we see Bennett in a Zapruder film? Oh, and Zapruder, even Zapruder, he was he's part of like two CIA proprietary groups in Dallas. He knew these people as well. One of the girls who worked in his shop was um ended up marrying George de Mohrenschildt, of all people, who had was connected to Oswald. I mean, so it's a really small world. It's that.
Yeah, gotcha. Anything else before we wrap it up, or anything else, or
Um, yeah, let me see. Um, okay, so yeah, besides the other creeps that were at Dealey Plaza, there was Jean Sutra, a French army captain, a right-wing covert arm in a right-wing covert army, which tried to kill de Gaulle. And CIA documents imply Sutra stalked JFK through Dallas, another weirdo. Um, D. McFarlane also posted another picture of Alan Dulles. What did you think about that? Did I send that to you? Yeah, I
I
did.
think let's see. I have your
Okay,
whole
Alan,
I have your whole
yeah,
thing here.
Alan Dulles has kind of sketchy alibi. Like he was on a plane like headed towards DC at the time.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think it's the picture, like as an artist, um, I can see how that person could be looked at. Like there was a lot of spooks on that ground, and that was all for their show. And a lot of those people got scared and ran after. Like Chauncey Colt went and was in a CIA safe house for a while. Roscoe White went to a safe house
Yeah.
afterwards. People were all implicated because it's like you have 50 people doing a tiny little bit of the job. They all did a bit of it. And so they all took off. Um, but that Alan Dulles picture, that's quite compelling because when you see the side of Alan Dulles and you see that I think that was behind the picket fence, right? And it really does look like him. But it's all for the show.
Looks
There was a picture of Joseph Miltier, possibly in an Altgens
great.
photo. I do actually really think that looks like him. And, I don't know if he was standing up on something or if maybe he was at ground level, because I guess I heard that he was kind of tall. He could have been on the pavement with other people on the sidewalk. I don't, but it looks like him. And it's hard to fake that guy. That guy has fluffy white hair and crazy horn rimmed glasses.
Yeah.
And it looked like him too. And he's the one who um, gave the heads up that there was something going down, something was going to
Yeah, he's
happen.
the only one on that was caught on tape saying it's going to
Yeah,
be yeah, a
yeah,
high-powered rifle from a building.
yeah,
He already
yeah.
knows what the narrative is going to be.
Right. Now, so after all this is said and done, and I listened to the Chauncey whole thing, and I just all the overcome with just the idea that they had to have total control of the situation, and they set up so many diversions for us to just not look behind. That's all we had to do, just not look. Oh yeah, so Penn Jones in 1975. I was listening to something, and it was him talking, and I was taken aback, and I just loved it so much because it really gave credence to Chauncey's story, which was who the hell were all the guys behind the picket fence with fake SSIDs? I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like time echoes with the truth, and we can hear it.
Yeah, that's one of the established facts of history that everyone can agree on. It's like who we don't know who those Secret Service agents were behind the null.
Yeah, there were a bunch of just CIA contract agents dressed up as, Secret Service agents.
Yeah,
So, and it was all time sensitive. Chauncey only had like a few days, and he had to make like 15 of them.
yeah.
Because they had to know the colors of the pins, the lapel pins, and that was only known like on the day. So whoever gave them that information, plus, I mean, so we know exactly where this came.
What's the best book? What's your favorite book on the case, or what do you think is the best book on the case?
Because I grabbed from so many sources and none of the sources actually even just align with my own, the answer is my own. And it's free on my Facebook page.
The answer is what?
My own.
But your own? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
Well, it's
link
because,
I'll
I
link
mean,
that to I'll
oh,
link it up.
I grabbed from a lot of different places.
Yeah.
And like I said, none of them exactly matched my own. A lot of them were really good. I would definitely say Mortal Error, uh, Fred Newcomb's, which I can't wait to read. I'm going to read that next fully because I only have excerpts. Those, and I was during this, I was actually listening to a lot of, it's on Our Hidden History on YouTube, and it's a lot of radio and people talking, throughout the 70s and 80s about the JFK assassination. And I listened to hours and hours and hours of that. And it was just so amazing to hear these voices over history and over time telling us their perspective and what happened with the situation. I was kind of disappointed not to find a concept as such as my own. But I had a lot of help, a lot of help. I cited it in my work, like I said, which is free. Yeah, so I can't really say anyone in exact particular, but everybody I cited, I really appreciate their assistance. I even got to speak to the guy who did the Chauncey Hold interview. It
Oh,
was
really?
awesome. Yeah, yeah. J.W. August, really interesting.
Why is the assassination important for future generations?
Uh, the dangers of too much power in the hands of so few. It's something that actually I would actually right now, um, I implore the CIA to bring out everything that they have, even if it points in their direction, because even holding on to something that implies that their predecessors had anything to do with it is not anything that they should have. It should be in the hands of the public, and
Yeah.
I would implore them to release the rest of it. And honestly, I mean, I think JFK should be exhumed at this point because we're missing the front part of his autopsy. We've got terrible, terrible. We're working off of the artist pictures of some things that had pictures to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's important because power unchecked, ultimately it turns and it's done what it's done, and it's only gotten worse. So I would want them to actually come clean with it and come out with it.
Anything else before we close it out? Anything else? Any other thoughts or just
No, but I do thank you very much for having me.
hey, anytime, anytime. Nicole Campbell, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
See you.